Good morning. It's good to see everyone's smiling face this morning. I hope you're excited to be here as we come in the presence of God. A few weeks ago, we had a sermon titled, "Who is Your Enemy?" Today, we're going to look at who is your friend. If you have enemies, I hope you have friends to stand up against the enemies. But the question I want to ask is, what do you look for in a person when you look for a friend? I mean, what kind of person do you look for? You know, I don't believe that many of us go out on the hunt for a friend. Get up in the morning and say, I'm going to go find friends today. I think most of us are drawn to other people by common interest or being together on a project, but we're pulled together by circumstances sometimes. The word friend, or a form of it, appears over 160 times in the Bible. Do you think it's important that we have friends? Is it important to God that we have companionship? Our text today also reminds us that too many friends may lead us to ruin. Now, I've heard it said you can never have too many friends. Some of the NIV Bibles translate this first line, one who has unreliable friends. The indication is that if you have many friends, some of them aren't going to be as good as others. Some of them aren't truly going to be friends. We want to look at people who are our true friends. So first, what is the purpose of a friend? I mean, why do we have friends? Well, a friend obviously brings companionship. We were never designed to be alone. We are designed to love and to crave love. We want to be accepted by somebody. Now, you may hear people say, I don't need anybody. Oh, yeah, they do. They've just hardened their heart to the point to accept the fact that they don't want to accept anybody. Because, you know, to be a good friend can be difficult. Whenever you're in a relationship, a close relationship, there's going to be pain and heartache because you care about one another. But we've never been created to be alone. Even clear back in the garden in Genesis chapter 2 and verse 18, the Lord God said, it's not good for the man to be alone. I will make a helper suitable for him. It's not good for the man to be alone. And that is still true today. In a marriage, if your spouse is your best friend, it's going to be an amazing relationship. I've seen marriages where I'm not even sure the husband and wife know each other. They never know what's going on in each other's lives, what they're up to. But yet, the person you decide you're going to spend the rest of your life with, to me, that needs to be your best friend. Friends have that purpose of filling a void that we can't fill ourselves. And your true friends are always going to be there for you no matter what. And that goes back to what our text was talking about. I think we all probably have friends that we know that, maybe we can't depend on for everything. They're not as reliable as the others. But that true friend is always going to be there. And that true friend is always going to bring comfort. You know, we talked a little bit in class about bearing one another's burdens, especially when it talks about the guilt of sin. See, that true friend is going to help us get through that time. That true friend will be there to wrap their arms around us and say, I'll help you up. I'll help you through this. I understand you made a mistake, but I love you anyway. I'm not going to avoid you because of this. Remember when Paul was a prisoner and he was put into prison, and his friends attended to his needs even though he was a prisoner. In Acts chapter 24 and verse 25, it says he ordered the centurion to keep Paul under guard, but to give him some freedom and permit his friends to take care of his needs. So even though Paul was a prisoner, his friends were coming in and out. They were comforting him, encouraging him. They were teaching one another. I mean, it would be real easy if a friend goes to prison to forget that friend. It's so difficult. I got to drive where? And friends, it's getting harder even today. There's so much paperwork to fill out if you want to go visit a prison. That's just really inconvenient. When we was in Arizona, I had a gentleman from the state prison that was in the town we was in. He was a member of the church, but he wanted the preacher to come out. And so he put my name on the list, and they sent me the paperwork, that thick. And one of the questions was, do you know anybody outside of this prisoner or have any relatives in the Arizona state penal system? At that time, I had a cousin on death row in Florence. And you talk about throwing red flags up and bells and whistles going off. I never did get approved to go out there just because of that. And so, yeah, it can be hard when you have someone who gets put in prison. But yet, being a good friend is not about my convenience. It's about the needs of my companion. See, in times of need, friends will desire to meet those needs. They'll desire to comfort us. They'll desire to be there for us. And we will do the same for them. And when we need to talk, a friend's going to listen, no matter what time or how long it takes. Have you ever had anybody tell you, you can call me anytime, and then not answer their phone after midnight? Well, then you can't call me anytime. I mean, it's just like when we tell someone, I'll pray for you. Do it. Just don't make it something you say. Do it. A good friend is going to be there for our needs. We're going to be there for their needs. Because that friend wants to bring encouragement to us. When we're being accused, we need our friends to stand behind us, to encourage us. You know, when things start to get rough, when they don't go smoothly, those who are not truly friends will disappear when we need them most. They're the ones that become too busy. They're the ones that don't answer their phone. A true friend is going to encourage us to do the right thing. Hebrews chapter 3 and verse 13 says, "But encourage one another daily as long as it's called today, so that none of you may be burdened or hardened by sin's deceitfulness." You see, a good friend isn't always going to agree with everything I say. A good friend isn't always going to agree with everything I do. A good friend's going to be close enough to you to be able to say, you know, that's just about the dumbest thing you've ever said. You know, if you do that, you're going to create more problems than it's worth. See, a good friend's going to have that kind of relationship with you. They want to encourage you to do the right thing, no matter how hard it is, no matter how difficult it might be. Why? Because they want to see you in heaven with them. They want to see you glorifying God in your life. What else does a good friend do? Well, just like we was discussing there, a good friend's going to make us better. It's going to make us a better person. Not only will they be a good companion, a good comforter, a good encourager, they'll be reliable. Doesn't that sound great? But now, let me pull the rug out from underneath you and tell you, that could describe a teddy bear. A teddy bear can do all that. A good friend is always going to tell you the truth. That's a little harder. One time my wife was out shopping with a friend and she put on a pair of pants and she come out of the dressing room and said, "How'd they look?" In so many words, Tammy says, "They look terrible." The girl went, "I can't believe you said that. You want me to let you buy them and go out and look terrible? I'm your friend. You ask my opinion, I'll tell you the truth." A good friend is going to tell you the truth. A good friend is going to be honest with you, even if it hurts. See, that's the thing we have to understand. We're not trying to hurt each other intentionally. But every now and again, we need a wake-up call. Every now and again, that friend is going to say something that may shock us. You see, Paul had a genuine love for those that he taught. He had a genuine love for those who took care of him while he was ministering. He had a genuine love for the church. But some of the people became angry with him when he challenged them with the truth. In Galatians chapter 4 and verse 16, Paul says, "Have I become your enemy by telling you the truth?" Friends, especially when it comes to salvation issues. You know, because I love you, because I don't want to hurt your feelings, I don't want to see you sad, I can tell you exactly what you want to hear. But that's not going to draw you any closer to God. That's going to pull you away from God. And as friends, our desire, just like Paul's, is to tell you the truth. To get you closer to God, to gain that eternal crown. And since friendship is going to display love, that means there's going to be action. Because love is an action word. A few years ago, Tracy Lawrence had a song out, "Find Out Who Your Friends Are." He says you find out who your friends are because somebody's going to drop everything, run out and crank up their car, hit the gas, get there fast, never stop to think what's in it for me. Or it's way too far. They just show up with their big old heart. That's a true friend. Because I don't do things for my friends for what I can get out of it. I don't do this favor so somebody's going to owe me. Friends do things out of pure love, out of they need me, and I need them. Paul said it best in Philippians chapter 2, verse 4. Each of you should not only to your own interest, but also to the interest of others. We need to look at one another's interests. Put their interests ahead of our own. What is it they need? Without thinking, what is it they need and how will that affect me? Because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. When it's our friend, we want to show that love. We want to pick people up. And a friend is going to understand you. I mean, there are some people you know that you can say just about anything to and they understand where it's coming from. They understand the attitude with which you're saying it. They understand that you may just be joking, and they don't take offense. I mean, there are things you can say to your friends you would never say to a stranger because it may cause a war. But your friends know. I mean, maybe you jab back and forth with your friends. Maybe you insult one another. That's okay because you know. You know where it's coming from, and it's part of your relationship, and you don't take offense to it. But you only get to that point by cultivating the friendship, making it deeper, and getting to understand. Proverbs chapter 17 and verse 17 says, "A friend loves at all times." See, true friends stick with us no matter what, just like we was talking about earlier. No matter what you get yourself into, a true friend is going to be there. Good times and bad times, happy times, sad times, cheerful times or grumpy times, friends don't fail. They're there. They're with you. And that's what God wants us to be as the body, as His children. He wants us to have those kinds of relationships. Now, we're not going to have that kind of relationship with everybody in the congregation. It's not going to happen. Matter of fact, your best friends may not even be in this congregation, and that's okay too. But you know you've got friends like this that you can depend on. You know your friends are going to be people that are looking out for your best interest while you're looking out for theirs. No matter what. What a friend we have in Jesus. What more can we say? What a friend we have in Jesus. He demonstrates all these things we've just talked about. He fits the bill on all of those. But Jesus also explains what a friend is in John chapter 15 and verse 13. He says, "I no longer call you servants, because a servant does not know his master's business. Instead, I have called you friends, for everything that I learned from my Father, I have made known to you." He says, you're no longer just followers. You're no longer just disciples. You are my friends. You know my business. I've revealed the plan to you. You know everything about me. He revealed the truth of God to them through what He taught, through how He lived. He explained His mission to them, even though they were kind of hard-headed at times and didn't understand it. He still explained His mission to them. This is why I came. Then He explained their mission to them. This is what you're going to do after I leave. He even revealed His deepest and darkest stress to them in the garden. They saw Him vulnerable. He said, I am anxious to the point of death. And His closest friends saw that. I mean, sometimes as people, we try to put on a strong, brave face. And sometimes we need to do that. But friends, our closest friends need to know how we feel. Because they need to know how they can serve us. Because we want to do the same thing for them. And if we got a relationship with people, we can know if they're just putting on a face or if it's true. I mean, how many times do people walk into the church building and you say, how you doing? And they say, oh, I'm doing all right. Chances are they're not. Usually if they're doing all right, they'll stop, they'll talk to you, shake your hand, whatever, have a conversation. I'm okay. No, you're not. No, you're not. And sometimes we don't even listen. Remember one time I was in the foyer talking to someone, and one of the other gentlemen come out and asked this person I was talking to is explaining to me his rough week. And the guy said, well, how you doing? He said, well, I'm not doing so well. The guy says, glad to hear it, and went on. We both looked at each other and grinned. I said, I guess he didn't listen. He said, I guess he didn't. And sometimes we get that way too, where we don't listen. We're expecting a certain answer. And that might have been what he heard, but it wasn't what it was said. Jesus holds nothing back from his friends. He holds nothing back from us. Jesus gave us an example of being a great friend. Think about that. In John 15:13 says, greater love has no one than this, that he laid down his life for his friends. Well, I think Jesus displayed the greatest love ever then, didn't he? He laid down his life for all of us. He considered us all friends. He laid down his life. There's no greater example of love, according to what Jesus says. Greater love has no one than to lay down their life. Friends, loving is not always easy. Loving is not always convenient. Loving is not always comfortable. But loving is what we're called to do. We're called to love one another. We're called to love God with all of our heart, with all of our soul, with all of our mind. Sometimes that's not easy. But then we're called to love our neighbor as ourselves, and sometimes that's not easy. Then you go back to 1 Corinthians chapter 13, the love chapter, and you read what love really is, and that's not easy. It's not easy. And one of the hardest descriptions in that 1 Corinthians 13 is love keeps no record of wrongs. That's a tough one. That's a tough one because we remember when people treat us badly. We remember those wrongs. But the Bible tells us true love keeps no record of wrongs. Just like God says, when you are forgiven of your sins, I remember them no more. He keeps no record of wrongs. You come to me, you ask me for forgiveness, I wipe it clean. You're brand new once again. And then Jesus will tell us who his friends are. You know, though Jesus died on the cross for the sins of the world, he also gave a stipulation of who his friends will be. He died for everyone's sins. He said, I want to be everybody's friend. But let me tell you, here's how you are my friend. He says in John 15:14, you are my friends if you do what I command. If you listen to his word. If you follow him. If you look to him for guidance. If you follow his example, he says, that's what makes you my friend. And if our friend Jesus laid down his life for us, isn't it only fitting that we listen to his words? Isn't it only fitting that we follow his commands? And remember, there's only two. Love God, love your neighbor. It says if you can do those, you can do everything else. Those are the two. to hold everything else up. I know it can be difficult. I mean, Adam and Eve only had one and they couldn't do it. We got twice as many. But yet, Jesus says, learn to love like that. Do what I command and you are my friends. It's been said, if you want to have friends, you must be a friend. I agree. Jesus described and illustrated friendship to us. I mean, He wants to be our friend. We need to desire to be His friend. But we have to remember that friendship is a two-way street. One-sided friendships will not last. Yeah, Jesus can be our friend, but if we don't try to be a friend to Jesus, He's not going to desert us, but we won't receive the crown of life. When this life is over, we're separated from Jesus for eternity. So let me ask you here this morning, do you consider Jesus your friend? Do you consider Jesus your friend? Does Jesus consider you His friend? Are you willing to do what it takes to make Jesus your friend if you haven't already done that? We need friends. We need friends for all the reasons we looked at this morning. If you're here today and you never made Jesus your friend by being obedient to the gospel, by being immersed for remission of sins, you have the opportunity to make Jesus your friend by getting into the waters of baptism, rising again to walk in a new life, being cleansed completely and sin-free. You can be a friend of Jesus, and He'll be your friend. Christian, maybe Jesus is your friend. Maybe you've made Him your friend, but maybe your friendship's struggling a little bit because of some of your decisions, some of your actions, some of your thoughts. Go to Him in prayer. Go to Him and ask for His comfort and encouragement, His strength, whatever it takes to get that friendship back together. Maybe you need to respond publicly and pray. Have the church pray for you for something you're struggling with. Maybe it might be spiritual, maybe your friendship with God might be something physical. But because we are friends with God, we can pray effective prayers and we can help you. Anything you need from God today, please go to Him either privately or publicly as we stand and as we